Glass exploded across my desk before I even opened my eyes. I rolled off my bed and hit the floor hard, my heart slamming against my ribs, ears ringing from the crash. Cold night air poured through a broken window that had been perfectly fine 10 seconds earlier. Something big had come through it. Something was breathing in my room, fast and ragged, hidden behind my overturned desk chair. I grabbed the only thing near me, a battered study lamp, and held it up like a weapon, my hands shaking. "Don't move," I said, my voice cracking. "I'm calling security. Please." The voice was low, distorted, coming through a small metal collar that flickered with static. "Please, Ethan, do not call anyone. They will find me." I froze. That voice knew my name. A shape unfolded from behind the chair, tall and thin, with long limbs and skin that shimmered faintly blue under my desk lamp. Two enormous eyes blinked at me, full of something I recognized instantly because I had felt it plenty of times myself. Pure fear. "Vantrick?" My voice came out as barely a whisper. My lab partner, the quiet, brilliant exchange student who sat 2 seats away from me every morning and never said more than 10 words, unless it was about chemical formulas. Now he was crouched on my broken glass, one arm pressed tight against his side, dark fluid seeping between his fingers. "You're hurt," I said, dropping the lamp and moving toward him without thinking. "I do not have time to be hurt," Vantrick said, and that was when I heard it, a low mechanical hum drifting through the night outside, sweeping slowly across the courtyard, like a searchlight made of sound. "They are already scanning this block." I miscalculated my escape trajectory. I did not mean to land here. I did not mean to land anywhere near you. "Who is scanning?" "Recall enforcement drones." His frills, the thin ridges along his neck, were pulled flat and tight, trembling. My review board convened 3 hours early. Someone changed the schedule without telling me. They found irregularities in my files, evidence I never created, planted evidence, and they issued an immediate recall order before I could defend myself. If those drones tag me, I get pulled from this planet tonight, and once I am inside a recall pod, no appeal is possible. Ever. That's insane. You've been acing every assignment since September. It does not matter what is true tonight. It matters what their scanners register. He winced, pressing harder against his side. I climbed the maintenance ladder outside your building to break their line of sight. I misjudged the floor number in the dark. I fell through your window by accident. I am sorry. I will leave the moment I catch my breath, and you will never see me again. Outside, the humming grew louder, then sharper, then it stopped directly beneath my window. My whole body went cold. "They're right there," I whispered. Vantrick's eyes locked onto mine, wide and desperate, and for the first time since I had known him, he looked less like the quiet genius from lab and more like a scared kid, a very long way from home. I made a decision before I even understood I was making one. "Get in the closet," I hissed, already moving, yanking my jacket off the floor and stuffing it against the broken glass on the windowsill so no light would spill out. "Now, go, go." He folded himself into the narrow space between my winter coats with a speed that surprised me, and I slammed the door shut just as something scraped against the outside wall of the building. A beam of pale white light swept across my ceiling, sliding over broken glass, over bloodstains on my carpet that I had no time to hide, over everything. My door alarm buzzer went off, a single sharp beep, dorm security protocol, automatic scan triggered by broken glass. I yanked my door open before campus security could knock it down and stepped into the hallway fast, blocking the frame with my body. "Everything okay in there?" The security guard, a heavy-set man named Callum, shone his flashlight past my shoulder. Behind him, 2 floating drones hovered at eye level, their sensor rings glowing a low, patient red, sweeping side to side. "Baseball," I said, forcing a laugh that sounded almost believable. I was messing around, tossed one at the wall, it went through the window instead. Total idiot move. I already called maintenance. Callum frowned at the glass on the floor, at the dark stains soaked into my carpet, and my stomach dropped. "That's a lot of blood for a baseball." "Nosebleed," I said quickly. "Bad one. Happens when I get scared. And trust me, seeing my window explode scared the life out of me." One of the drones drifted closer, its red ring sliding across my chest, then past me into the room. I held my breath. It paused on the closet door for one endless second, sensor light flickering, and then it swept onward, gliding out over the broken window into the night sky, chasing whatever residual signal it had picked up outside instead of inside. Callum grunted, unconvinced, but unwilling to argue with a bleeding nose story at midnight. Maintenance in the morning. Keep that window covered till then. The moment his footsteps faded down the hallway, I shut the door, locked it, and yanked the closet open. Vantrick tumbled out, gasping, his whole frame shaking. "That drone almost had me," he said. "Its scanner reads biological heat signatures. It should have caught mine." "Maybe it read your fear as mine," I said, only half joking, already grabbing the small first aid kit from under my bed. "Sit down. Let me see your side." He hesitated, then obeyed, peeling back a layer of thin protective fabric to show a long gash along his ribs, dark and ugly. I had no idea if human bandages would even work on alien skin, but I pressed a wad of gauze against it anyway, and he did not pull away. "Why did you help me?" he asked quietly, watching my hands work. "You could have called security the moment I came through your window. You would have been safer. You would have been believed. Because you knocked instead of hiding," I said. "Wait, no, you crashed instead of hiding. Same thing, basically. If you wanted to disappear quietly, you wouldn't have said my name the second you saw me. You wanted help. That counts for something. The review panel will not agree with you. Then we go convince them ourselves." The words left my mouth before I had thought them through, but once they were out, they felt right. "Where does this panel meet?" "Hall 9, beneath the observatory building, but the recall order is already active. If they see me before I clear my name, they will not listen to a single word. They will simply take me. Then we get there before they see you." I zipped the first aid kit shut and grabbed my shoes. "You said the evidence against you was planted. Do you know who planted it?" Vantrick's frills flickered, a motion I now recognized, after months of lab sessions, as something between anger and shame. "I believe it was Doran, another exchange student, from a rival research cohort. He resents that my sequencing results outperformed his, for 3 straight assessments. I have suspected him for weeks, but had no proof. Then we get proof." I threw open my closet, pulled out a dark hoodie, and tossed it to him. "Put the hood up. Keep your hands inside the sleeves. If anyone sees you in the halls, you're just another exhausted student pulling an all-nighter." He stared at the hoodie like it was an alien artifact, which, given the situation, felt darkly funny. "This is a terrible plan," he said. "It's the only plan we've got. Move." We slipped out into the hallway, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The corridor lights had dimmed to their overnight setting, long shadows stretching between doorways. Somewhere above us, through the stairwell window, I caught the faint red glow of a drone sweeping the courtyard again, methodical, patient, hunting. "Stairs," Vantrick whispered. "Elevators log biometric weight signatures. Stairs do not." We took them 2 at a time, my sneakers slapping against concrete, his boots eerily silent behind me. On the second-floor landing, a door swung open without warning, and a girl from my history class, Ivy, stepped out in pajama pants, holding a mug of instant noodles. "Ethan, what are you two doing running around at midnight?" Vantrick went rigid beside me. "Scavenger hunt," I blurted, grabbing his sleeve and pulling him past her before she could look too closely under that hood. "Long story. We're already late. Sorry, can't stop." Ivy shouted something confused after us, but we were already through the ground floor door and out into the cold night air before she could follow. The courtyard stretched wide and open in front of us, lit by scattered lampposts, completely exposed. Directly across it stood the observatory building, its dome catching a thin sliver of moonlight. Between us and it, a drone drifted lazily along the tree line, red sensor ring scanning left, then right, then left again, a slow rhythmic sweep. "We cannot cross in the open," Vantrick said. "It will catch my heat signature within 4 seconds. Then we don't go across." I pointed to a narrow maintenance tunnel entrance near the science building, half hidden behind a row of bushes, the same tunnel a janitor had once shown my class during a plumbing tour. That runs under the courtyard. Comes out near the observatory's utility entrance. How do you know this? I paid attention during the single most boring field trip of my life. Come on. We darted low along the tree line, moving fast, sticking to shadow, until we reached the tunnel hatch. It groaned loudly as I hauled it open, and for one terrifying second, the drone's hum paused mid-sweep, as if it had heard something. We dropped down into darkness and pulled the hatch shut, just as the hum resumed its slow patrol overhead. The tunnel was cramped, damp, smelling of rust and old pipes, barely tall enough for Vantrick to stand upright. We moved through it half-crouched, my phone flashlight bouncing off wet concrete walls. "Tell me something," I said, partly to keep myself calm, partly because I actually wanted to know. If Doran planted the evidence, why would the panel believe him so fast? "You said your scores outperformed everyone." "Because Austronali exchange protocols are new," Vantrick said, his voice tight with old frustration. "Humans do not yet fully trust our data integrity, and my own government does not yet fully trust yours. It creates a fragile balance. One accusation, timed well, is enough to tip it." Doran understood that. I did not, until it was too late. "So we need something the panel can't argue with. Hard proof, not just your word against his." "I have partial proof." Vantrick reached into a pouch at his belt and pulled out a small crystalline chip, no bigger than a coin, glowing faintly blue. A backup log of my original lab data, time-stamped before Doran's falsified version was submitted. If I can play it for the panel, before the recall pod arrives, it proves tampering. Then that's our whole plan. Get you in that room, play the chip, before the drones drag you off first. We reached the far end of the tunnel, and climbed a rusted ladder up into a narrow utility closet inside the observatory building. Through the thin door, I could hear muffled voices, tense, arguing, coming from somewhere deeper in the building. "That's them," Vantrick whispered. "The panel. They should not still be in session, unless..." The door beside us clicked open. We both spun around, and there stood Doran, tall, sharp-featured, his own translator collar glinting under the hallway light, his expression sliding from surprise into something colder and more satisfied. "Well," Doran said softly, "look who crawled out of the walls." "Move aside," Vantrick said, steadier than I expected, straightening his shoulders despite the wound still leaking beneath his hoodie sleeve. "I have proof of what you did." "You have a story," Doran said. "The panel already has evidence, real evidence, properly filed, properly reviewed. Whatever you are holding will not matter once the drones confirm your unauthorized presence outside your registered quarters. That alone is grounds for immediate transfer." He reached for a small device on his belt, thumb hovering over a button that would, I guessed instantly, alert every drone on campus to our exact location. I did not think, I just moved. I stepped between them and slapped my hand over Doran's, pinning it against his belt before he could press anything. "You're not doing that," I said, surprising myself with how firm my voice sounded. "You want to explain to a room full of professors why a student is caught trying to silence someone right before a hearing? Go ahead, press it, see how that looks." Doran's eyes flicked toward the door, toward the murmuring voices inside, calculating. For one long, breathless second, nobody moved. Then he yanked his hand back and stepped away, jaw tight. "This changes nothing. The recall order stands regardless." "Then let the panel decide that," I said, "with all the facts, instead of just yours." I shoved the utility door open and pulled Vantrick through it, into a wide, dim conference hall where 3 panel members sat behind a long curved desk, papers scattered in front of them, clearly in the middle of finalizing something. Every head snapped up at once. A woman near the center, older, silver-haired, wearing a faculty badge that read Professor Grace Bennett, rose halfway out of her seat. "This session is closed," she said sharply. "Security has already been notified of an unauthorized presence on this floor." "Then you have about 90 seconds before they get here," I said, breathless, glass still crunching faintly under my shoes from earlier. "So please, just listen." Vantrick stepped forward, holding out the glowing chip with a hand that was shaking, but only slightly. "This contains my original data log, time-stamped before the version submitted against me," he said. I am asking you to compare it directly to whatever file Doran provided. Not tomorrow. Now, before that data can be altered again. Professor Bennett hesitated, glancing at her colleagues, then at the door, where I could already hear fast footsteps approaching. Please, I added, my voice steadying even as my pulse raced. If he's wrong, let the drones take him in 5 minutes. But if he's right, and you send him home first, there's no undoing that. You said it yourselves. No appeals once recall happens. So just look. That's all we're asking. Something in her expression shifted. She reached out and took the chip. The footsteps stopped just outside the door as 2 security drones and Callum himself burst into the hall, red sensor rings flaring bright the instant they registered Vantrick. Wait, Professor Bennett said sharply, raising one hand, without even looking up from the small reader she had plugged the chip into. Numbers and timestamps scrolled rapidly across her screen. Hold position. Nobody touches him yet. The room went silent except for the soft hum of the drones and the rapid clicking of data scrolling across her display. I stood frozen beside Vantrick, my hand still gripping his sleeve, and for the first time all night, I let myself actually be afraid of what might happen next, instead of just reacting to it. Professor Bennett's eyes narrowed as she compared 2 files side by side, her frown deepening with every second. Finally she looked up, first at Doran, who had slipped into the doorway behind the drones, his earlier confidence draining fast from his face. This timestamp predates the filed submission by 6 hours, she said slowly. And the data structures do not match. Someone altered values in the official file that do not exist in this original log. Her gaze locked onto Doran. Would you care to explain that discrepancy? Doran opened his mouth, closed it, and said nothing. Recall order suspended pending full investigation, Professor Bennett said firmly, and I felt the tension drain out of my body so fast my knees nearly buckled. She turned to the drones. Stand down, both of you. The red sensor rings dimmed to a neutral blue and drifted back, powering down their pursuit protocols right there in front of us. Callum let out a long breath and rubbed his forehead. I am going to need a full explanation for tonight. From both of you, in the morning. Understood, I said, still holding onto the doorframe for balance. Long story. Involves a baseball apparently. Vantrick turned to me, his frills relaxing fully for what looked like the first time in hours, into that slow, small flutter I now recognized easily as something close to relief, maybe even joy. You did not have to do any of that, he said quietly. Just for me. You crashed through my window bleeding and terrified, I said. Kind of hard to just go back to sleep after that. I still owe you a window. You owe me a lot more than a window, I said, and for the first time that entire night, I actually laughed. A real one, shaky, but genuine. But we can start with the window. Outside, through the observatory's tall glass dome, the first pale hint of morning light was beginning to spread across the sky, and somewhere beneath it, a hallway away, a very different kind of night was finally, quietly, coming to an end.